was a very, 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 very good man. He was of the Mormon faith, and he had a lot of friends and a lot of really, really close people who said he was really, really, really a good guy. You know, outgoing, handsome, everything. He had a very, very rough upbringing. His mother was a drug addict, so she spent all of her money on drugs, which unfortunately left the children to eat scraps, expired food, whatever was around. So he said, hell no, I am not going to live this way. So he moved in with his grandmother. When he moved in with his grandmother, he said, say peace out to all that madness. I'm gonna go live with grandma. So he lives in Riverside now. This is down in Southern California. So it's not too far from San Diego, if I'm not mistaken. So after some time, his grandmother introduces her faith to him, and she is a Mormon. So that's how that plays in. So, a background on Mormonism. I know you can't drink alcohol. They're not big caffeine drinkers either. I have some family members who are Mormon, and usually the men and women go on Mormon missions. It's typically the men after you graduate high school, which Travis did end up doing. So they will go to a selected city, and the church will kind of sponsor them, and they will stay at church members' homes. The food is provided by the church, and they just go door to door and, kind of knock. They usually wear the black slacks and the white shirts with they typically ride around on the bikes, and they wear the white shirts with the black slacks, and they're so cute. I don't know about you, but Mormons are so attractive. I don't know what it is. They're like the most attractive people, have you guys noticed? I don't know. I really don't think that I've ever met an unattractive Mormon, have you? I don't think I ever have. So anyways, Travis decided to go full force with this Mormonism, and he was baptized. He had tons of friends that were also involved in the church as well. And like I was saying, he did go on his Mormon mission after graduation from high school. And after that, he ended up getting a job at a company. It's an MLM company called Legal Shield. When he was working at Legal Shield, he did very, very well. He was very, very outgoing, and by the time he was 29, he ended up getting to a pretty high rank, so he was making good money. He was able to purchase a home at the age of 29. So he owned a home, he had 2 roommates, he had a dog named Napoleon, I believe, and he's a pug, and he had all these friends, and, life is good, right? No, so switching over to Jodi Arias. Jodi Arias was a woman who was born on July 9th, 1980. She was the oldest of 3 children, and some things that I have read is that she was kind of a rebel child, kind of the bad kid. She was the oldest, and in my prison, and she became very sad and lonely. She would have outbursts, and her moods would switch from one polar opposite to the next. So her parents thought that she may have bipolar. So she was super into photography, and she liked taking pictures a lot. That was something she enjoyed. I know that sounds silly, but it will come into play in a little bit. So she ended up getting a job as a saleswoman, and this was for, you guessed it, Legal Shield. So, as you can tell, through Legal Shield, her and Travis did end up meeting. They came into contact when she met Travis at a convention in Las Vegas for Legal Shield. They would go to Vegas, they would get all, pumped up for the sales and go have cocktail hour, that kind of thing. And a group of these Legal Shield people had decided to go to the Rainforest Cafe. At the dinner at Rainforest Cafe, Travis ended up going to Jodi and introducing himself. So, he boldly walks up and introduces himself, and the sparks just flew. Everybody could see that they were like magnetic. They really, really were into each other that night. They talked all dinner, really got to know each other, and they stayed up that night and ended up really getting to know each other, so they really hit it off and ended up hanging out, that night. So the next day, it kind of really hit Travis like a wall. Jodi just hit him like a wall. They were in lust like overnight. He ended up talking to his friends and coworkers and telling them that he was so in love with her, like he felt like he could marry this woman, and he had literally just met her. But the only problem is that she is not Mormon, so they were definitely in lust. So I say this because things were quickly picking up between them. Now, after the work convention, she ended up going home. She lived in Palm Desert, and he was living in Mesa, Arizona. After the work convention, they ended up staying in contact via email, MySpace, that kind of thing. It was during the MySpace days, if you were around for those. So she goes home. Mind you, she had a boyfriend at home. She ended up breaking up with him because he did not want a marriage. He had experienced one before. He was divorced and did not want another one. So that was her reasoning. I think Travis had a little bit of something to do with it as well. So she dumps him. She moves out. And she really gets into Mormonism due to Travis, of course. And they go to church. She goes and visits him in Mesa. He sends missionaries to her house, the whole nine. And he said that he'd always try to give her hints that he wanted her to become a Mormon, obviously. And he gave her, a purity ring, the whole everything. And which I don't really understand, because they ended up having sex later, like a lot. That was kind of their thing. It was all about like sex and possessiveness. But anyways, he gave her all of these Mormon items, the Book of Mormon, and he tried to convert her. Obviously, no harm, no foul. He really loved his religion and wanted her to be a part of it. He loved her. He wanted a future with her, I believe, and little did he know she would become very, very possessive and a little bit loco. So he ended up breaking it off later on when his roommates and friends she's possessive, dude. Like, I'm worried. We're worried she's going to hurt you. They had a sneaking suspicion. Off topic, but I don't know if you can hear the buttheads outside driving their little rice rockets around. Oh my gosh, the mufflers are so annoying. But anyway, I think what, the straw that broke the camel's back was the fact that she was literally standing outside of the door when the roommates said, sat him down. They quietly said, go check. And there she was, at the door. So, let's back it up to November 26, 2006. Travis ends up baptizing her. They took vacations, they spent time away, they got this book called 1,000 Places to Visit Before You Die. Eerie. They went to some of those places. She would end up going to visit him, and she'd stay for a few days at a time in Mesa, Arizona. So she ends up going to visit him a lot in Mesa, and the roommates start to really realize that she is very possessive and crazy. So, they'd start to realize, they'd pick up on it. They'd notice how she would kind of follow him around like a lost puppy, and it was very odd. He would even use the restroom, and she would be right there by the door waiting for him. So she would stalk him on his MySpace. She would hack into his emails. She would do all of the things. And I mean, like this, that's abuse, you can have a healthy relationship and a great sex life. It is possible, Travis. And I think he started to realize that, even though she had this spell on him, yeah, you don't have to deal with that. And at this point, he really started to figure that out. And the friends, had pulled him aside and said, this is what's going on. She's crazy. So then they end up pulling her aside and saying, like, leave him alone. We don't think you're good for him. We don't want you with him. So they end up breaking up. He ends up going to dump her when she gets back home. They were so tumultuous. It was back and forth. That did not last. They ended up getting back together, and I think she started to feel comfortable. It's like she was wearing the pants. She wanted to kind of test the waters, and when she got upset because she believed he was cheating, she broke up with him. At that point, it was kind of like mind games, I think. It was like, oh, see, you dumped me. Now you know how I feel. I'm gonna dump you now. Now you can see how it hurts. And most likely, anyway, it was like he would come begging back, and he even proposed to her, and she turned him down. So at that time she said nope. So she was playing games with him, and they were broken up. That's it, but she stays in contact with him, I think, trying to get his attention. So she still stays in contact with him and is trying to get his attention by saying to Travis that she now has a stalker, aka herself. She says that someone is watching her through the blinds and is kind of following her. She says that he has sent her letters. She tells Travis that she's very nervous. The stalker, Jodi, is saying in the letters that she needs to end it with Travis, and that he lives in another state, and that he, the stalker, is better for Jodi. This was obviously an attempt to get Travis to get Jodi to move back with him, but it did not end up working out. Travis's friend Travis begged her to move to Mesa, but he in fact did not. She moved about 10 minutes away from him in Mesa. And at this point, she moves there and she wants to surprise him. So she ends up showing up at his home. And when she shows up at his home, she witnesses him with another girl, which makes her very upset. It seems to be that he is on a date, so she's literally sneaking around his apartment, like through the window, sneakingly, like looking at them, stalking him, literally breaking the law. So she would go through and break into his home, in like through the doggy door as well. All kinds of weird things. He would end up finding her at some points of her doing that, and it would really, really upset him. Then at other times, he would give in to the Jodi Arias aura, and they would end up doing sexual things. So they'd end up going back and forth and back and forth. So I'm sure she was getting mixed signals, but she literally would just break into his house. By this time, it looks like so by this point she does not have a job. No job in Mesa, just moved there. And Travis had offered her a job in his home to be a, get this, like a maid where she'd wear a sexy outfit and he would pay her. And then at this point, this does not last, and he ends up getting her to move back with her grandparents. So she was very, very depressed. She even slid his tires. So he kind of convinced her, you know what, you need to go home, you need to be with your family. So she did it. She actually moved, and I think he was probably giving her false hope. Like, maybe one day in the future we can be together, but as of now you need to go take care of yourself, kind of thing. But, you know, there she had more opportunity to focus on her photography. She ended up working at her parents' restaurant as a waitress. I'm sure she got really good tips. She's beautiful. But she ended up hooking up with this guy named Ryan. He was also a Mormon. He was very handsome. He lived in Utah, however, and they were very attracted to each other, but he also worked for Legal Shield. It seems like she has a type. So, he was kind of this other guy, but she was still obviously obsessed with Travis. I mean, in a sick, twisted, loving kind of way, she was just obsessed with him. And so back to Travis, he had moved on. He went to meet this woman at a singles night. He didn't know he was going to meet her, but he met her there. And it seemed like she was a good fit. Her name was Mimi, and Travis was more into her, than she was. So at this time, he's probably feeling kind of defeated. Of course, Jodi would sneak her way back in, and I think he was kind of at a low point. Maybe his ego was a little bit busted after Lisa and Mimi did not want him. The sex with Jodi was good, so he just kept going back to her. And maybe he just decided, I'll go back to what I know, But of course, she was still wild and weirdly obsessed with him, and would record their phone calls, their voicemails. When they would have phone sex, she would record all of these things, and this is wild to me. So they officially ended things when Travis got very upset with her. It is unknown exactly what tipped him off and just said that's it, but she stages this break-in and says when her grandparents returned home that the grandfather's gun had been stolen. Very odd. Only one item stolen from the home, apparently. Just Grandpa's gun. So, June 2nd, she was supposed to go drive up and see Ryan in Utah. And at first, she went and rented a car in Redding, California. Random. She didn't even live there. So, anyway, she didn't want this red car that they offered to have her rent. So she wanted something more low-key, a white car, something that would not be as, bright, something that wouldn't be noticeable. Apparently, she did not want to stick out too much, did not want the attention, I guess. So, while she was apparently driving to Utah, her phone was off, and she claimed that it died. But anyways, she was supposed to get to Utah by June 4th, but, that was the plan with Ryan, and she didn't actually end up showing up until June 5th, and, where the hell was she? What was she doing? Like, we all know now. So then on June 9th, they were supposed to go on this work trip, and nobody had heard from him. Travis was supposed to go to Mexico, Cancun to be exact, with Mimi. Mimi was the girl that he really liked most recently, and they were supposed to go just as friends. But they ended up not going, obviously. He was very excited. He was working out, getting fit, all that stuff. So they were supposed to go. He was just trying to get her on this trip to kind of swoon her. So then on June 9th, they were supposed to go, and nobody had heard of him. And Mimi was starting to think, wow, what's wrong? Like, this is weird. He hasn't even talked to me, and we're supposed to go to Mexico. Strange. So I think our gut feelings said, something was up. So they were in contact with the other friends of Travis, and they could not get hold of him as well. They all ended up going to his house, and the front door had no answer. But one of them had the key code or passcode to the garage. So they went into the garage, and one of the roommates was home. He had his music on really loud or headphones in and did not hear the door being rung, the doorbell or knocks on the door. So he said, hey, what's going on, you guys? They said, hey, have you seen Travis? Because no one has heard from him. He goes, yeah, obviously he's in Cancun. And they said, no, we're supposed to leave tomorrow. And that's when things started to get very, very upsetting. They walked up to Travis's room, and they saw that the door was shut and locked. With that being said, the roommate took the spare key and opened his door. So upon entering, they see this blood on the floor, and that is when Mimi decides to turn around and say nope. She calls 911. During that time, the roommate is walking towards the room and can see a lot of blood all throughout the room. He follows the blood trail up to his shower and sees him there. When he enters, he sees that Travis is in the fetal position in his shower. Mimi, is on the phone with the cops, and finally the detectives show up, and they are all asking, who would do this? Do you have any idea? And they instantly all said yes. Jodi Arias. She is his ex-girlfriend, who is very crazy, possessive. They all pointed the finger at her. So the detectives are looking for everything they can at the crime scene. They realize that this is obviously a brutal also cut his throat and shot him in the head. So on June 4th, 2008, it was determined that he was indeed murdered. So Jodi ends up finding out where the funeral was and actually shows up to it. Are you kidding me? So she gets into the middle of it all when she tries to get hold of the police and wants to know more about the investigation. She calls once, doesn't get through to anyone, gets really mad, and then calls again, and finally gets through when she says, I might have information. I know Travis. She really wanted them to know that she wasn't there and that she had moved and she was no longer dating him, that kind of thing. Like red flags, so many red flags. She made it clear that she thought there were two suspects at the scene. So, it was clear that she did not want them to believe it was her. She said, I'm so small. Travis has been working out to go to Cancun. He's very fit. There's no way it could have been someone small. It had to be two adults to take him down. So detectives were like, wow, that's weird. So she makes this weird note to detectives that she thinks it's these two people, and they end up finding blood at the crime scene that has Jodi's DNA mixed with Travis's DNA. And Jodi was so dumb that she literally took off the bed sheets to clean up, threw the camera with all of the photos on it into the washer after attempting to delete the photos, and that did not work. With the photos that were taken, I will not show any of them because they are very sad, of course, and triggering, but his last photo alive, it was moments before he was murdered. You could see the fear in his eyes, and it was really, really, really sad. And the photos, the first one was of her nude body, and then it was of him in bed, like they were taking naughty photos, and then it looked like she kind of coerced him into the shower or something, and it looked like he was really scared. She may have had a gun in her hand, something along those lines. Then at 5:30, a photo was taken, which is, like I was saying, the last one of him known alive. It had to be 5:30. There were timestamps. So after all of those photos were taken, everything else was just bloody, blurry photos, as if the camera had been dropped and the attack was taking place. So it kept snapping the photos as the murder was happening. And after that, you could see there's a photo of him with blood coming from his skull, and he's laying in the shower. So then she literally cleans him off, goes and cleans herself off, and then leaves. So on July 15th, the detectives show up to Jodi's grandparents' house. They ended up putting all of this together and figuring out that the caliber of the grandparents' gun was the same with the shooting of Travis. So they put it all together, and they arrested her. It was discovered that she had rented another vehicle with tons of clothing and automatic handgun, as well as 2 knives. And she was obviously getting ready to run away to leave. So they go to interrogate her, and they go to the station. So she's just denying everything. She's denying everything until they finally bring the photo of her, the first photo found on the camera, to her attention. They put it in front of her, and this is what she says. She shrugs and says, well, it looks like me. So she was hers and his mixed. She states that, oh, I've been in his apartment so many times, it must be in there, obviously in the room, and it's just mixed. So they're like, we got you. That's it. You're done. So she's booked. The next day, she has a whole new story. This story, she says that there were two people that entered the room and they knocked her out, and she could see that they were definitely going for Travis. Like they were going to assassinate him. So she says that they were definitely going towards him to murder him, and she ended up getting the gun and blacked out. She doesn't know anything. So she's just sitting in the interrogation room for hours and hours. Before doing the booking photo, she has to do her makeup, and they deny that request. And she's very odd. She's doing handstands and singing in the interrogation room and just being kind of off. So the police pick up on this behavior, and they just find it very strange. So the next day, I think she's released. I'm not totally sure if after that she's released, but she was booked. So she says that she was hit on the head, and they were definitely going for Travis, like I was saying. And the cops are like, okay, well, if this happened, why did you not call 911? Her response is that her phone was dead, and she was petrified to go home because she thinks that the perps had her address and knew her identity. So she was nervous that she didn't want to go home because they would be there to murder her, waiting for her. So when she shows up for trial, she's dressed super innocently. She looks like very, oh, I wouldn't hurt a fly, you know. Her hair is back to her normal color, the brown, and she is seen wearing glasses. Oh my gosh, she's seen wearing glasses. And, you know, her hair was bleach blonde prior to this, and it was back to her brown color, and she kind of gave off the vibe of, oh, I would never hurt anyone. And she said that she could not help looking that way because she had to, because of the fact that she did not have hair dye in jail, and her eyes were failing because of jail. So that's her reasoning, but you can tell she's just lying through her teeth. Like she's really trying to play like she's the victim. So the prosecutors put together the fact that she has tons of gas in her car. They put together the fact that she wouldn't be tracked at a gas station on video. So this was all premeditated. She had turned her phone off at certain times, like I was saying. So they had all of this against her, and it was believed that he was in the shower when she came and ended up stabbing him. At that point, he fell towards her and went to the sink, and she turned around and continued. He then ended up going down the hallway, still alive, and falling down and passing out, probably from the blood loss. And then this is where it's believed that she ended up going from ear to ear. And after that, she drags him back up to the shower. From the shower, she puts him back in there, shoots him there, and rinses him off. So she then says, peace out, leaves, goes to Utah, goes to see Ryan, and she acts like she's fine and happy. She then later tries to make an alibi for herself by calling Travis and texting him and emailing him as well. She kind of made it seem like Travis and her had plans for later on, made it very apparent that she was driving and nowhere near Travis. So, then later on, Jodi takes the stand and changes her story again and makes it seem like he is a pedophile. Travis, that is. She says that on the night of the murder, he was pleasuring himself to a photo of a child, a boy, and that it, like, grossed grossed her out. And it also, it really grossed her out. And also, she said that he was very abusive and had kept all of the videos and everything of them. So she made it seem like he is not this good Mormon guy. He is a pedophile piece of crap. So she had tried to keep all of this blackmail basically, but it ended up being all of the evidence in her case that he was abusive. So the next thing she remembers is that this new story appears in her brain. She was lying about everything, and the day of the murder, she apparently discovered that, and she just blacked out and ended up just shooting him and killing him. And last thing she remembers is that she was driving through the desert. So who knows? So she just says that she was driving through the desert, ended up at Ryan's, and the day of the murder, she had apparently discovered him doing what he was doing, and he got really, really upset and lunged at her. So she had to protect herself and ended up getting the gun and shooting her. She was found to be guilty. Then the following day after sentencing, Jodi shows up with a shirt that says survivor. Like, she's the victim here. So she was wearing this shirt to make a point, like, I'm a domestic abuse survivor. Like, shame on her. So the jurors couldn't figure out what they wanted to do, so it ended up being a mistrial. Then later on, all of it ended in another court case in 2015 with a whole new jury, but the actual judge sentenced her to life in prison without parole. She recently tried to get out, or, get her sentence. So she tried to appeal her sentence on March 24th, 2020, but the court upheld her for sentencing of first-degree murder without parole conviction. So this case is just heartbreaking. This woman just needs help, serious help. One of the last things she said before sentencing was, "To this day, I can't believe I was capable of something that terrible." And she also said, "I'm truly disgusted and repulsed with myself. I'm horrified because of what I did, and I wish there was some way I could take it back." Well, you can't take it back, Jodi, so I'm sorry. This case is pretty sad, but it is very, very interesting to me, like, how you could go from love like that to just crazy murder. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.